play survival. Like, even if
if you're enjoying it, if you're enjoying the spec, then you're gonna be pushing those buttons with a, with a purpose.
Well,
also,
let's put this disclosure out here real quick. So, Morningwood does not support hunters playing survival. So, Rain is a special guest. If you are a hunter, you go play your range spec. You've got 2 of them. If you want to do melee, go did a different spec. So, just put that out.
Sorry, I didn't know there was a ban on survival around here. It was just the worst spec I could think of. So, Lynkz, you said you're starting to raid this week?
That was all you had at the time, right? So,
right, the Alliance! Other than that, it's... I ran through the portal with, hey, get off my shoe, you bitch. Dogs. Sorry.
What a portal experience he had. All right, good morning. Thank you for waking up with some morning wood. We got this bright, Sunday? Today, June 13th. We're going to be rolling into this week of WoW, June 15th. It's episode 20 of the Morning Wood podcast here. We got a special episode today. We got a special guest, Mr. Rain here. I'll let him kind of introduce himself to you guys.
Hey, everybody, how's it going? I'm Rain. Play mostly melee DPS, probably switching to range DPS for 9.1. So I'll be warlocking it up.
All right, and then he does stream on Twitch, so we'll have his stuff in the YouTube. And if you want to throw it out, what your tag is, I guess, for Twitch?
It's just twitch.tv/Rain 2_ games.
All right, so we'll have the link in the description. We got the main cast here also. We got Mr. Thunderfury, we got Drew, and then we got Mr. Burn It Down himself, Mr. Hakkd. So
burn it to the ground.
There we go. So we'll roll right on into it. We got Mythic Plus this week. We're on the 3rd rotation. It's week 4. So we got Tyrannical, and that's, of course, non-boss enemies, 30% more health, inflicting 15% more damage. We got Inspiring. It's that new one they threw up here for Shadowlands, where some non-boss enemies have Inspiring Presence that strengthens their allies. So that kind of makes the ads around them non-interruptible and kind of annoying, where you got to kind of push that guy down first or keep him away from that group. And then Necrotic, the healer's favorite one, where all enemies' attacks apply stacking Blight that inflicts damage over time and healing received. So I guess that's more of a tank one than healers, right? Or kind of a combination. They both hate that one.
If you have bad tanks, then it's not very good. But it's totally manageable. Totally manageable, because most tank specs go carrion, and you get a vial that resets that. Now, if you're dwarf, it resets it.
So it is.
If you're paladin, it resets it.
Necrotic gets reset, because I know Grievous does. Grievous is an obvious bleed.
Yeah, Necrotic, you can
technically
that off.
Oh wait, the Curing Vial is bleed, poison, and whatever.
Yeah, pretty much anything.
That's why.
Yeah, it's nice. So if you got, for instance, I've got a paladin that is a dwarf that's a carrion. So that fix does not exist this week for that character. So
yeah.
So when you say most tanks, you talk about the 2 tank classes you play.
I play more than 2.
Well,
I play warrior. I play
4 paladins doesn't count as 4 classes. Like that's still 1.
I play warrior, paladin, demon hunter. I play guardian and
do you though?
Master.
Do you though?
I do, but the problem with guardian is it's not really playing. Like seriously, like you hit like 3 buttons and it's done.
You've got multiple forms.
You load up a mall.
Right? You just
load up a mall.
You just swipe that shit and it's done. You thrash, good to go. You have the legendary, it's done. Your work is done.
So I made my tank setup really easy, where I hotkeyed my Thrash to my armor, Iron Fur. So it automatically pops that, so I press 2 buttons.
Exactly. See,
Mangle Thrash.
Yes.
Mangle Thrash.
It's
oh shit, I'm in trouble. Frenzy regen.
You don't
it's
have to press it.
awesome
It's auto
because
now.
you get
Like,
to concentrate on different things. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, that's one of the ones I play a little bit. So I play everything but DK. Fuck DK.
you don't like being stuck in the mud and going super slow. All right, so not a push week really. It's not really a rough week by any means, but not gonna be the week where you're pushing,
Not
right?
great. Yeah.
Still doable for 15s though.
All right, so maybe get that KSM at one point. I guess, Rain, you got KSM or were you sitting?
No, I kind of gave up on Mythic Plus. There's no rewards that are worth it. Maybe for 9-1 though, because I think the new season looks cool. Cooler than Prideful. I'm not a huge Prideful fan.
Well, we'll see. I still don't have high hopes.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Playing Feral Druid, there's probably kind of an uphill battle trying to get into groups. It's Feral Druid too, right?
It's not even. There's just no groups. They just don't take you. They take you thinking you're balanced, and then when they see you're feral, they just remove you without saying anything.
This motherfucker's got communal gear on.
Yeah. What do you mean you're melee?
All right, so Valor Cap's going to go up to 15,500. So if you're still grinding it out, there's what the cap's going to be out for this week. So World Boss this week, we got Valinor, who's up. He's going to be found in that northwest corner of Bastion, way up there. This is going to be one for Elemental Shaman, Holy Priest, and Rep Paladin. So if you guys are missing those Legos, Elemental's probably still going to be the best in slot one across the board for everything you want to do. I think there's one for Mythic Pluses that's changing the meta, or changed the meta back when I've looked into this. There was it reduced like the cooldown of your Earth Elemental or something. I think that's the one people are using Mythic Pluses more now.
The Earthquake one's good too.
Is that the one that people are using? Or so single target, best in slot one for the Elemental Shaman. Holy Priest, it's that odd one that gives you that battle res after you die. Nobody really uses that because it's not going to be that throughput buff. Rep Paladin's Final Verdict. Last we talked, I guess, this is the one that became the meta for single target there, Hakkd, right?
Yeah, because it got buffed big time. Literally the next episode that we got it. So we talked about it one time. I was like, it's garbage. It's so bad. You're like, oh, but does it have a niche of like the extra 10-yard range? I'm like, no, it's garbage. Don't ever use it. And then the next on the next rotation, I was like, it's fucking slaps, dude. Best in slot.
Well, it's good to know that the WoW developers watch this podcast.
Oh yeah, of course.
Right. They watched it to get advice and to troll Hakkd. Like, oh, Hakkd thinks this is shit? All right. Well, Craig over at Blizzard's like, screw this guy.
Now you got to wait 4 weeks so you can make your 235.
Right. All right, good deal. So again, if you're one of those classes, Elemental Shaman, Holy Priest, Rep Paladin, get out there, get your memory to build those Legos out. So when 9.1 does happen sometime, maybe, you can have that. All right. So some raid numbers, cutting edge. Some people are still out there grinding it out. The new update overall, we've got 1,827 guilds that have cutting edge. Another 148 knocked it out this last week. Horde went up 100 over last week. Alliance went up 48 over last week. So I'm kind of impressed how people are still pushing that like this far into it, because we're, what is it, 28 weeks? Yeah, we're 28 weeks into this expansion, and people are still pushing it. That's
At least they have something to do, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, there were some hard nerfs last week to Sire, so that probably got some people back into it.
Was it really even hard nerfs?
I mean, it was a percentage of health they killed.
Yeah, but it was Oh, did they do another health nerf? Because the only one that I saw was that Phase 3 now begins at 37% instead of 40.
I know. Maybe I read it wrong. I thought it was 15% total health, but
Oh, maybe I must have missed
I
that.
thought she posted that, but maybe I read it wrong. I'm just going from me glancing at something for a second, so.
I mean, if they did do another health nerf, that would make sense as to why they did the percentage change on Phase 3 beginning. I wish they would have done that for Heroic too, because that kind of fucks with us when we're pumping. Like, if everybody in our raid is just blowing shit up, then we have to sit and wait around to kill the rest of the ads before we can push them.
Hey, this week though, we two-shot him. That was pretty cool.
Did you guys knock it out in one night then, or?
We just skipped ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did Shriek, then Huntsman, and then we were like, yeah, fuck this, let's do Sludge. Sludge.
We won't
Alliance.
mention we wiped on Huntsman because we don't want to.
Well.
Oh, okay, yeah. The first fucking howl.
Like we wiped on Huntsman.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing.
Right.
Well, while we're on the raid topic, we do have a clip of the week here from the raid itself, and this is from your point of view there, Rain, right?
Yep. Enjoy.
All right. So these clowns have watched it already. I figured I'd wait to watch it live with you guys to see what happened. It's titled "I'm a Chipmunk," I think is what this clip was called. All right.
Non-Titans Grip Fury,
I
do
actually
it.
could upgrade my one-hander with it, now that you mentioned that.
Let's do it.
7 item levels.
Chipmunk voice in again.
I was wondering who that
one
was.
You're a chipmunk.
I'm a chipmunk? What the fuck?
Rain as Chipmunk needs to be...
Is it fixed?
Yeah.
Fixed out.
Unfortunately.
Non-Titans
Oh
Grip Fury.
god, so good.
So you just like hit the button, or like what happened there?
So I've got Radish got me the WoW Yeti mic for my birthday, and it's got all the like pre-installed voice changers for stuff. I think that's actually the Mechanome one, but I had them hotkeyed, and I forgot that I hotkeyed them, and somehow I hit F1, and I didn't know that was the hotkey for that, and I just kept talking. I had no idea. So I was a chipmunk for a little bit.
I just love the whispery fucking, what the fuck? Oh.
Oh man. So I don't know if you can make this happen, Drew, but you should somehow sneak over to Heel's computer and set hers up for hotkeys on abilities she actually uses. So like throughout the raid, if her voice changes as she raid leads, I feel like that would be enjoyable to see.
And she just can't figure it out.
Like if she ever found out it was me, and she would by watching this, I would be dead.
But this will test to see if she actually watches this podcast, right?
Oh, she does.
Okay, so there goes that. We should have.
That's totally not gonna happen, Kat. Don't worry about it.
A wink.
All right, so Mr. Rain here. One of the reasons we brought him on is he's kind of like a low-key log expert. Like he came into our raids as Feral, and I was doing Feral also. And once I saw his DPS, I switched over to Boomkin because I was like, "The fuck, this guy! Like, I'm not gonna try and compete with
Yeah,
this."
Rain does that.
So I'm gonna switch over to Boomkin and be like, I'm doing it because we need range, not because he's shaming me in DPS. So
Well, he was talking about playing Frost Mage or something in 9-1 for a bit. I'm like, I'm gonna play Rep Paladin then, dude. I'm not playing the same spec as you. You're gonna fucking bury me and make me feel bad.
You guys give me too much credit. I'm not that good.
Spots. You can't do
Dude,
that.
I've played with you for like fucking 6 years now. I've seen you play like 12 different things.
You don't want to see me
100%,
tank, Drew. It's bad.
100% parse on everything.
Well, then I do want to see a tank. We can open up a spot. You can just.
If you never want to clear normal, sure. I'm down to tank. But yeah, I'm not that good, but I do spend some time going over logs, and Hakkd is the improvement officer, but have jumped in with him on a couple people to help them out, which has been cool. We helped Rad and Naughty with some DH rotational stuff, and their parses the next week jumped up like double digits for both people, which was really cool to see. So yeah, figured when Lynkz invited me, just talk about what I know, which is log review type stuff. So you want me to just get into it, or?
Yeah, I guess, is there like a log we can pull up to kind of go through? Is this a thing, or I guess, how do you want to go about this?
I didn't have one to just actually go through. It's more like high level stuff I was going to talk to, so people have like some knowledge base and like a way to actually go through logs.
Yeah, we can just do that.
So, a lot of people, when they look at logs, they just kind of like look where their DPS number hit and where they stack up in the raid. And, if you're top of the raid, you're doing good, but it's not necessarily always the case. So, knowing what eye level parse means versus overall parse is a good starting spot, obviously. So eye level parse puts you in a bracket for your eye level, and ranks you against all other people of the same spec within your eye level. So generally speaking, high eye level parse means that you're playing your class correctly for the most part, because you are topping the percentage within your same gear set. Where things start getting a little bit trickier is overall parse, because that's just where your number sits overall in the grand scheme of your spec. And overall gets weird just because the people at the top tend to do some weird cheesy stuff, like getting 15 PIs on a single fight to kind of like get that number one parse. So I don't put as much stock into overall parse. It's good to see if that number keeps going up, but generally as your eye level goes up, your overall parse goes down unless you're doing cheesy stuff. So I've always put more stock into eye level parse. Just, am I playing as well with the people in my bracket?
See, but I've even seen, like, even when your overall parse is going up because you're in one of the higher brackets, like your item level parse goes down.
Yeah,
like,
as you get higher, that'll happen too.
I'm parsing overall, if I get a 90% overall parse and I'll have like a 70% eye level parse, it'll be like, oh, what the fuck? But it's because everybody in my item level bracket is also in that overall bracket in the same spot and still beating me, so...
Right, yeah, once you start getting like all 226, you'll start seeing that happen. But for those of us who aren't doing Mythic...
Yeah, a quick question is, I always wondered about this because, we do heroic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we are, the parses don't care what you do for your main content. So probably, in my mind, what happens is the people that do Mythic for their progression. And then if they do heroic, the only reason is to get that high item level parse, right? Or that high parse.
Definitely.
Yep. That's why I don't really put a lot of stock into it.
Right?
Yep. Yeah, that's why overall is kind of weird, and the higher your item level gets, it gets weird because you start going against all those cheesy parses.
But knowing that, as somebody that like understands that, like when I go through, if I see somebody at a 60% parse on heroic whatever, I'm like, that's good, because at least the top 20% of that is like fucking mega geared cheese parses, like
Mythic Raiders coming back into heroic.
Pretty much everything in the top 20%. Like, I don't expect you to be there, so like, you're in the blue basically. You're good.
Yeah, and with that said, kind of then where I start doing my analysis is, I try to find high parses within my eye level bracket, but I don't generally look at the first 25. I kind of go past the first 25. And in the logs itself, it'll tell you like how many PIs a person has got. So I actually try to find
I'm really glad they added
parses.
That.
Yeah, I try to find parses that have like 0 or 1, because I want to know what they're doing without that haste buff, because it'll throw off all of their like timings and how many casts they get in. So find a parse that has similar fight timing as well. shorter fights generally lead to better parses and higher DPS because you have less downtime. So if you can match up our kill to a fight that has a similar timing, and then you can use the timeline of casts is the first place that I generally go.
Yep.
After looking at like uptimes on my dots, because that's kind of like basic stuff, right? If you're playing a classic and have 100% potential uptime on your dots, you want to see how close you are to 100% uptime. After 100% uptime, you want to look at resource management, and if you're burning any resources and wasting any resources, whether for feral, whether that's energy for demon hunter, whether that's fury or whatever fury, warrior, rage, whatever it be, you want to make sure you're not burning combo points or whatever your resource is. And there's a way that you can break that out in the logs to see wasted energy.
Shows you where it's wasted, when, and all that.
With what ability. It's great.
Yeah.
And then after that, basically I take that not top 25 parse, but the parse that's better than mine, and I line up via the cast timeline and see what they're doing. And what the differences are. Is my opener wrong? Am I positioning poorly and don't know what I'm doing? You know, I'm not in a good spot for mechanics, so it's causing downtimes. Those are kind of like where I start, and then I go from there. So with the positioning thing, do I know the fight? You know, there's a replay feature that you can actually watch little icons move around with all the abilities that are going off, and you can kind of learn, you know, I can be in a good spot here, so I don't have to move for this mechanic. You know, am I causing myself downtime? Am I causing myself stopped casts? And learning the fight strategy when damage amps happen, like Sludge Fist, for example, is a great example. You know, that first pillar hit where we generally lust on that first pillar, you want to hold all your cooldowns unless they're going to be back up for that first pillar. So if you're looking at a log and you see you burned all your cooldowns because you forgot, well, you're not going to parse as well because you haven't taken full advantage of that damage amp. So that's kind of that's basically my log philosophy. Unfortunately, it's not as useful for tanks and healers. Healers, it can be good because you can use damage taken by the raid and your tanks to kind of plan CDs or look at overhealing and make sure that things are planned out. But that's kind of like a team effort for healing. DPS is way more individual, is how you're playing.
Yeah, and even for the healing, you don't even necessarily need to go through your own logs and look. You can just go through the fight logs, and you'll be able to see when the damage happens and plan accordingly. So it's a nice tool for that, like going into a new fight or progressing on a fight that you're having issues with.
Yeah, sorry, Drew. Tanks, it's pretty much useless.
Well, for tanks, I would think that you could see if you mitigated a hit or not, you know? And that would probably be the biggest thing, is just like, are you hitting your mitigation? And then, unfortunately, when tanks mess up, everybody knows, right? I mean, like,
right.
Yeah.
You put it in the right spot.
Logs can be good for a tank after a pull. Like, the only times we ever used logs for tanking was we would wipe, and our tanks would be like, "Why the fuck you die? You died to this shit." And they're like, "Oh, no, I didn't." And then you go to the logs just to argue about it and figure out
like
why
in a top end scenario, you'd probably look at tank damage if you're like doing serious progression and make sure like your actual damage rotation was correct to just eke out that couple extra 100 DPS or whatnot. But that's for like mythic, you know, cutting edge type people, where they're looking at stuff like that. But other kind of tips and tricks, and I'm always willing to help if there's anybody in the guild who needs log review help. I love going through this stuff. So, but join a class Discord. At the very minimum, you want to read either the Wowhead or the Icy Veins guide, but that kind of gives you a general, like, generic baseline. The class Discords are where you're going to find all the real good, like, tips and tricks. I'll give an example for Feral. And this doesn't show up in the class, like the Wowhead or Icy Veins guides, is owl weaving, where you run Heart of the Wild and Boomkin Affinity. And so when you, instead of kind of pooling energy, you energy starve yourself, pop Heart of the Wild, and then you use that insta-cast Star Surge, and you cast Moonfire, Sunfire, and then go back to Cat. So while you're in Boomy, your energy is refilling, and then you get back into your rotation, and every time you energy starve yourself for the duration of Heart of the Wild, you're shifting into Boomkin and casting those 3 spells. And the other thing you can do is a good example is like Sire when Massacre's going off. If I have like a bad Massacre spot, I'll just shift to Boomkin and spam Moonfire and Sunfire to eke out some extra DPS, because those both hit harder than an auto attack. So you're never gonna find that though in a class Discord. So learning your class and like what is your or a Wowhead. Yeah, you're not gonna find that in a Wowhead. You're gonna find that in a class Discord. And there's some parse demons that are in those Discords. So generally that's pretty good info.
Yeah, and it depends. Like some class Discords you'll go to, and all of their resources are just Icy Veins. So like for that spec, Icy Veins is the go-to, or Wowhead is the go-to. So that does happen sometimes as well, but it's good to join a class Discord and figure out what is the go-to resource for this spec.
Yeah, and you'll see it with like legendaries. Like this is the generic best rating legendary, but then if you break it down by fight through logs, and I think you were just looking at it, Lynkz, you'll see that there's different legendaries per fight and different, talent builds per fight. And the Wowhead and Icy Veins guides don't really get into that a ton. And that's where kind of knowing your class comes into play, and knowing what the goal of your class is. Like for Feral, I'm going to keep using Feral because it's what I'm playing, even though nobody else plays it. But like on Stone Legion, I run a completely different setup. I run Apex Predator, which gives the free ferocious bites on ticks of rip, because you want to funnel rips into the ad. And you could run the generic raid Lego and be fine, but if you're really trying to push your DPS, you want to run more of like an AoE funnel setup because of the way that the fight goes. So stuff like that, and then just knowing what your class wants to do is a big thing. Like knowing what your hardest hitting button is and how you get to push it as many times as possible is a big thing.
Right. And you're talking about...
Sorry, I was just gonna ask a quick question. So as far as like learning and stuff like that, I know that a lot of people, what they like doing is finding someone who's really good on Twitch and then just kind of trying to duplicate what they do. Do you ever do that? I know that Bay does that. Like especially.
It's live because it's tough to see what they're pushing. So if you could take that fight and then find their logs, like and use it that way. I'm not good at translating it in my head, like live watching what they're doing.
I don't see as much value from that, because I would just go to their logs and you can actually see it. But I think there's a lot of value in seeing how they play on this fight, like how they position in a relatable way, because like the replay features and shit aren't necessarily always relatable for people. So
I'll give a great example on, I usually do melee seed on Zymox, and watching my timers, I'll start shading towards the melee seed a couple seconds early, just so that and still be within melee range, but be within like 2 steps of the seed. So like instead of being to the right of Zymox, say, which is farther away from the seed, I'm kind of like positioning myself between Zymox, then myself, then the seed. Yep. So I can have maximum uptime on Zymox, and I can just click the seed without really moving, and then try to be as close to the teleport as possible, so I can get back and forth to continue damaging as fast as possible.
You pre-position for things to come. Basically.
And like what we'll see on like Sire is like ranged whatever ad goes down first, they'll actually shade to that side instead of standing in the middle in between the two and still be within actual range of casting their spells. So then they have to run all the way back over to the left ad, and they burn all that time of not casting anything. Whereas if you just shade to the middle of the platform, you just have to turn your camera instead of taking those couple steps. And that's where using the like past timeline can be helpful, because you'll see that like that big downtime. Like my first question when I'm doing log review is like, what were you doing for these 3 seconds? That's
Exactly.
two
That's always my
globals that
favorite
you didn't cast anything. What were you doing for 2 globals? And then you can then take that and use the fight replay, and because you have a timer that you can match up exactly, and you can see where you were positioned to the mobs, and then you'll be like, oh, I wasn't anywhere near these, I couldn't damage them at all. So that's kind of like where my log review goes.
Yeah, it's also worth noting WoW Analyzer. So for some of the dummies like me that can't take that information and read it properly, I just go plug the logs into WoW Analyzer, and it basically just puts it in a dummy-proof interface for me. So that's open to everybody. If you ever find a fight, logs after a raid night, and you want to go check it out, you can always plug it into WoWAnalyzer.com, and it breaks down a lot of that stuff. So Rain earlier mentioned, uptime on any kind of dots that you have, whether it be your bleeds, just any of your dots. It'll also look at your cooldown management. So like short cooldown management, as a rep paladin, it's gonna say how many times you used your Blade of Justice compared to how many times you could have used it. So if you missed a couple casts by not pressing it on cooldown enough, it'll tell you stuff like that. And then it's also good to maybe rethink your cooldowns depending on... Some of this needs to be taken with a grain of salt, but if you look at a fight like Hungering Destroyer, if it tells me that I could have gotten an extra cast out of my wings, my Avenging Wrath, then that's something, like on that fight specifically, I need to think, okay, well shit, I need to reorganize my cooldown management, because I should be able to get another cast of this in.
There's also like unoptimal usage of abilities that it's hard to like quantify, but I'll use Hungering as a good example. Like when you get out for Expunge, like you always want a Ferocious Bite with full combo points, right? Like that's how Feral works. But like if an Expunge is about to go off, like you're just gonna dump your combo points into that last Ferocious Bite because you want to get as many Ferocious Bites in, and you're gonna have all that downtime while you're waiting for Expunge to finish.
Yeah, and then you're gonna be max energy.
Right. Yeah. So you just throw off a 2 or 3 combo point Ferocious Bite regardless of your energy, and that's extra DPS that if I just held that, I wouldn't have gotten. So there's unoptimal things that per fight you kind of learn as you do the fight more. And that's where this can help with that, especially if you see downtimes or like, it's better to let your rip fall off because you're going to lose it during the Expunge and just get another bite in because it's going to do more damage.
Yeah, just bubble it.
Yeah, just bubble. Just Cloak of Shadows it and stay in the Expunge.
I just ice block.
All right, and so one thing I like better about logs for like Legos and talent builds, rather than going like, what does Icy Vein say? What does Wowhead say? This is statistics. Like the guy used this and did these numbers. It's not Mr. Wowhead Andy made an article and said this is the best. This shows actually performance. Like he used this and this is what it did.
So to be fair though, that's not what happens on Wowhead and Icy Veins. Like, on Wowhead and Icy Veins, those people that write those guides will be like mods in those class discords. Like they're gonna be big names most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah.
So it'll be a differing opinion. Well, if there is a differing opinion between the two or something, it'll be just two opinions from the top end or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, like, you kind of have to think about what your audience is for those two, though, because it's going to be people that are picking up the class that want to learn, and that's probably better for them to begin with than to be flooded with all this information that you have to do this stuff perfectly.
Yeah,
you know.
Right.
That's why I love like
always
Icy
go to.
Veins has the easy mode tag
Mhm.
on everything. So if you look up a spec, you can just click easy mode and it tells you, hey, these are your main spells. Hey, this is your burst cooldown. These are the resources you manage. Here's a decent talent setup. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing Feral forever. Like, I wouldn't recommend somebody. Well, I wouldn't recommend anybody play Feral, to be honest. But I wouldn't recommend anybody walking into Feral and just starting to Owl Weave, right? Like, you're gonna hurt your DPS more than help your DPS if you just try to do that to start. Like, learn the basic DPS first and the basic rotation first.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of like, you know, watching the NBA and then be like, okay, let's go play.
Yeah, right. I can
like,
do
okay,
all that.
you are gonna be able to do the shit that those guys do right now. So
yeah, let's practice some free throws first. And then I guess just to close it out, don't worry about numbers too much. Just play what you like to play. You're gonna do more DPS on something you feel comfortable on and like playing. If that happens to be survival, play survival. Like, even if
if you're enjoying it, yeah, if you're enjoying the spec, then you're gonna be pushing those buttons with a purpose.
I would go as far to say even the talent build. If you're more comfortable on a less optimal talent build, you're gonna do more DPS than whatever the optimal talent build is.
If you're having more fun, whatever, like anytime you're having more fun, you're gonna be caring about your button presses more, and there's gonna be more comfort. You'll do more damage. Yep.
Well,
also,
let's put this disclosure out here real quick. So, Morning Wood does not support hunters playing survival. So, Rain is a special guest. If you are a hunter, you go play your range spec. You've got 2 of them. If you want to do melee, go did a different spec. So, just put that out.
Sorry, I didn't know there was a ban on survival around here. It was just the worst spec I could think of.
Ban on survival.
All right, so, and then Hakkd, I think, was going to talk about Moose's comment here in chat, right?
Yeah, we need to do some kind of log breakdown every week. Call it links and logs.
Oh man! And then I guess so. Rain, something on the show we've come across is the server Frostmourne. Have you run across any of these clowns recently?
No, not recently, but in the past, yes. And I say fuck them.
Right? Suck it, Frostmourne. See?
Yeah, the worst.
Right? It used to be a Kael'thas or whichever oddball servers. There was another one besides that, right? That was kind of like they queued in.
QT.
Yeah, there's QT and Rag, but Frostmourne is a special one because that's all the Aussies.
Right. I did discover this a week ago that it is an Aussie server. So
yep.
We're taking a stance against Frostmourne, not against Australia, just as a disclosure there. So it's not the country, it's this one.
The problem
server.
is there's not even a language barrier between them. They're just assholes.
Right? And they play in the morning, whereas dads, they get up early. Like, that's the people we play with if we get online. So,
I mean, but if you really think about it, I mean, you'd be kind of an asshole too if you woke up and you walked outside and everything there's designed to kill you.
That's true.
Right?
True.
Sat
They
down
had
on the
fires
toilet
like
this
as
morning
big
and
as
there was
my
a
hand.
fucking spider. Fucking.
God. They're just jealous that, you know, we don't have death outside waiting for us every day.
I guess it's probably the same effect, right? Like when somebody invites Rain to a group and they find out, oh shit, you're feral, they just remove you. When I invite somebody to a group and the first thing they say is, "Good day, mate," gone.
I wonder how many ignore lists I'm on. that guy plays feral, just ignore.
So when they ask you like balance, like just when you queue into it, you know they're gonna ask you balance for the most part. Do you lie and try and just sneak in like low key, like?
Yeah, but then I spend all the time getting to the Mythic Plus, and then when I walk in as a cat and there's like, I thought you were balanced, but like, well, I'm just trying out feral, and then they don't believe me, and then they remove me anyway.
So if you run Heart of whatever, can you walk around in balance form? Can you walk around chicken form?
You can.
So that'd be kind of like a low key Like sneaky, like you walk in as a balance and then run the
Yeah,
whole
just
thing
walk
to zero?
around as a boomy. Yeah.
Walk in and chicken, and then just start playing cat.
As soon
Yeah,
as it
once the key starts, it's like,
Yeah, the
what are you
key's
gonna
already
do?
started.
You ain't gonna kick me now, bitch. Yeah.
I guess unless they inspect me, that'd be the only way they'd know.
Oh man, I want you to do that now and stream it and see like how many you can do before somebody calls you out.
I can try.
Oh man, that'd be great. Oh, something too. So, have you ever looked at actions per minute on the characters and like classes?
Mm-hmm.
So, Feral is the slowest or most downtime class, like by far. Do you find yourself just sitting there, like kind of hanging out for stuff to like regenerate then, or?
So that's kind of where Heart of the Wild kind of fixes that, because your general play style is you never want to energy starve yourself, because you always want to be able to push a shred and be able to generate. So if you're not generating combo points, you can't Ferocious Bite. But with the way Ferocious Bite is designed, you want a Ferocious Bite with 50 energy always, unless you're in a Berserk window. So
It's a very pooling.
It's a slow class.
Yeah.
So Heart of the Wild changes that, because you want to energy starve yourself, because you want to shift into boomy form while your energy is regenerating. And it's basically 3 globals, and by the time you get 3 globals off, your energy is back to like 70-ish.
Yeah, Lynkz, look at that. So you had Feral at the very top, like by a large margin, but then you've got Feral Owl Weaving down below, about halfway down that.
Okay.
Downtime
So
list.
it's not as slow if you go.
It's right behind Windwalker is where Owl Weaving is.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. It's like, okay, I know there's only 2 Demon Hunter specs. Why are they up there 3 times?
Yeah, it's probably one with Demon's Bite and one without, I would assume.
Probably, yeah. One with the auto attack, Delio.
Whatever momentum is.
That's the fucking stupid Fell Rush build.
Yeah, the Fell Rush, and then their Disengage, whatever that's called. I don't remember the name of the ability.
Vengeful Retreat.
Yeah. So that's going to be, there's more buttons, one more button to push in that build, basically.
Yeah. But it's timing oriented. Fire.
And then Arcane, like, so out of 32 actions per minute, I looked at this and they've got just
weird, actually.
It's the casting, like the channel of Arcane. So you press one button, it goes for 2 seconds or however long.
Gotcha.
So your actions aren't as much because you're casting the whole time and channeling.
Oh, when you're evocating, yeah. So yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a spec that doesn't have a lot of like high APM, like normal Feral is really slow, generally speaking.
And then what? So looking at this, Drew, Prot Paladins at the top. You're doing 72 actions per minute.
Yeah, but it's so spammy, man.
Yeah, it's very spammy.
Yeah, because
like Outlaw is. I'm glad. It's funny to see Outlaw there.
And also the entire thing like is for Prot Paladin, you run your legendary that resets your Avenger's Shield, so that even increases the amount of pushes per minute on that too.
I like how all the tank specs are up there.
Yeah.
Well, is it because they've got a lot of stuff that are off the GCD, like an armor type buff? Is that?
You know, here's a good example of what we were just talking about, though, Lynkz. So look at Outlaw Rogue, 69 actions per minute. Nice. Sub Rogue, 59, and then scroll down to find Assassin.
The bottom.
So Assassin's way down there because that is the pooling spec. So that one you have to just rely on your bleeds and poisons, and then pool your energy.
Sounds a lot like Arms.
Yeah, just like Arms.
Mm. Arms is down there too at 51.
Yeah, same thing. You see Fury Warrior is super spammy, but Arms is more of a, I'm going to sit and wait and pool my rage as it generates.
Yeah, I can't think of a time where a GCD's up in Fury and you don't hit something.
Yeah, Fury is, you know, Bloodthirst, Raging Blow, fucking.
If nothing's there, you're cleaving.
Yeah,
So.
you're just spamming up to
Or Whirlwind, sorry.
a Rampage lighting up.
In Marksman, that's a lot of cast time, right? Is that why that's kind of at the bottom?
Yeah, because aim shot, steady shot both have cast times. So you're obviously there's no APM going during that cast time. That's why
Plus-
Elemental is down there as well.
I would almost.
Plus, aim shot is on a cooldown, so there is some pooling there where you'll just cast a steady shot, pooling up either cooldown or focus for aim shot spams.
Yeah.
I would almost say that the more spammy a spec is, the easier it is. Just because
I would generally
as
agree.
long as you're hitting something, you know.
I would generally agree because
Yeah,
Ret is fairly spammy as well.
The nice thing with spammy classes is you're not punished as much for rotational mistakes, whereas
As long
with
as you're
pooling-
pushing all your buttons.
Right. As long as
Yeah.
you're pushing something, you're doing damage. It's not going to be optimal damage, but you're doing damage. Whereas pooling specs, like if you energy starve or resource starve yourself, you're not doing any damage while you're waiting to get back into your rotation, and then all your timings are off.
Mhm.
Um,
That's what I like about Ret, though. It's like a nice mixture between the two. So it's fairly spammy, but it's also got a couple little setups that I have to worry about, like especially when playing Final Reckoning. So my opener would be something like, casting Judgment, Blade of Justice, and like just getting up to max 5 holy power, and then popping my wings, popping Final Reckoning, and then just like Verdict, Wake of Ashes, Verdict, Divine Toll, Verdict, just to like squeeze as many verdicts into like my short little cooldown burst. And then from then on, it's just spam your fucking buttons, get your holy power, use it on fucking Templars. Just spam. Yeah.
yep.
All right, good deal. So I came and kind of looked at this on actions per minute of like what I want to play, and like I'm kind of leaning towards Arcane because I feel like I can just sit there and hang out like half the raid based on it having 30 actions per minute.
Oh.
So Rad is playing Arcane, leveling it up, and he's loving it.
Yeah, but he's thinking he's gonna love it for PvP in endgame.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just with Arcane though, doesn't that require you like whenever you move, doesn't it kill your DPS? Pretty much.
Yes. Unless you can, like you have one opportunity to move as Arcane, and it's when you are dumping your Arcane power charges your conserve phase. So Arcane is basically you use mana as a resource. So the more Arcane charges you build up to 4, your shit all costs more mana. So you'll pop all your big cooldowns and you'll just burn through all your mana, and then you have an ability that gets it all back. But then you conserve your mana until your next cooldown rotation. So that would be really your only opportune time to be able to move is to use an Arcane Barrage to dump your charges. So you can take a couple steps while you do that. And then during your conserve phase, it's not too bad because you're trying to conserve your mana anyway, and that's not where your damage is coming from. It comes from your burn phase.
If you look links though down below, DPS variance percentage, that's going to show you the most punishing classes if you mess up, basically. Like, so Arcane is also the most punishing class to play.
Because that's the thing. Like, if you go into burn phase and then you get hit with a mechanic or have to move, you're fucked.
So
you
that's
miss the burn phase.
real quick that I need to ask about. You guys go over logs and everything. I didn't hear you guys saying sim anything. Are you guys anti-sim or
Not anti-sim. Like, stat weights are nice, but the APIs that are used, like either somebody will find an error in the API or whatever the APL that they load into like Simcraft that Lynkz is looking at right now. So I'm not anti-sims. Like stat weights are good, but it's so much easier now because like eye level is generally always king. So if you get a better piece, regardless of secondaries, you're probably equipping it.
Mostly sim trinkets.
Yeah, you're simming, and Blood Mallet has all the trinket sims that are pretty accurate. And your stat weights don't really change. Like crit is always going to be good for feral, no matter what. So you're always enchanted, or you're always going to enchant crit and socket crit for if you get a socket. So I don't need to sim that. And most classes are the same.
Right. What about like when we're going into 9.1? I assume that the nerfs on the total amount of balance on secondary stats, you know how they balance those out so that once you get above like 30% or something, then it starts being harder and harder to get a percentage. How's that going to affect things? Is that going to, I mean, is it still basically going to be whatever has the most intel, agility, and strength?
For the most part. Certain classes have breakpoints where like you get an extra tick of something during the cooldown or during the duration that it's on. But it's still eye level. The way that they have the game design now, eye level is pretty much always going to be king, regardless, unless you're a class that has like a hard breakpoint, which I really don't know if there are any of those anymore.
A 210 to 213, like it could be very dependent. Like a 3-item level difference, not necessarily, because you know the secondary stat weights could outweigh the small amount of main stat upgrade that is. So if you've got a 210 haste mastery, and those are your two best stats versus a 213 crit verse, like the haste mastery over the crit verse will probably outweigh the small main stat bump.
The thing that
in terms of like 213 to 220, it's main stat bump is going to be huge.
The thing that I don't like about sims is people get really down when they sim themselves at like 5,500 and then they do 4K because 5-minute patchwork fights don't exist. Like they just don't. There is no fight that you get to just stand and not do anything for 5 minutes. And all the different cooldown timings and how mechanics break up your rotation, like you're never gonna hit your maximum potential sim. It just unless you're
the computer
a guy in
also
limit
playing your class perfectly.
Right.
In a perfect scenario, that's how much damage your character could mathematically do.
So
that's why light movement.
Light movement and patchwork.
More realistic.
But your big things you're looking for is just uptime, like total activity uptime on a boss, and your dot uptime is like for a baseline to look at. Sims are good for generic stat weights though. It's really all they're useful for.
Yeah, so I'll throw this into as character improvement officer, if I see somebody that's struggling or somebody comes to me asking stuff, within the logs, I plug them into WoW Analyzer just because it's easier for me to read, but the timeline feature that he was talking about earlier, I just want to go into that a little bit more because that is one of the first things I look at. Like he said, I'll look at dot up times and cooldown usage real quick. But then I'll go and look at timeline, and I will look for the global cooldowns. Like, you're letting half a second go by after each global cooldown resets. Like, that's a lot of damage that you're missing. A half a second more on every global. Those add up, So you're missing out on a lot of damage doing that. But
and
definitely
if you are someone
the timeline feature is what you're looking at.
If you are someone who wants to start looking at logs, just find one thing to work on. Like, don't try to look at your logs and then look at somebody who's parsing better than you and take 7 concepts out of that you need to work on, because you'll never do all 7 at one time. Like, find 1, maybe 2, but I would recommend just do 1. If one of your things is, I'll use Rad and Naughty as an example. They were wasting a ton of fury.
Yeah.
And they weren't pushing Chaos Strike enough. There were some other things, but that was the big one.
It was the big one. Yep.
We told them just work on Chaos Striking more. So and then once you get that the next week, then find one more thing to work on.
Exactly.
Until you finally get to a point where you have like a well-rounded repertoire on your class of new things that you've done.
Yep. It's pretty much what I do every single time with somebody is, you know, for an example, I was working with a Warlock in 8.3. It was like, okay, your immolate uptime could be a lot better. Let's focus on that, because that's bread and butter. That's huge. Immolate uptime. That's your focus. You get that down, here's something else, you know. So there's always, it doesn't matter how hard you're playing your character, there's always some kind of improvement that you can find, even if it's the littlest thing.
So, look at this. This is the timeline you were talking about, right there, Hakkd?
Yeah, WoW Analyzer puts it in a little bit of a
better format,
easier to read format. Yeah.
This is what I like to use, though.
Yeah, well, this is it. It just puts it in a different format on WoW Analyzer, so it's a little bit easier to, like, it condenses it with everything, so it overlaps things, but you can still see. You may not be able to use the timeline feature, Lynkz. You'll be able to see a little bit of it though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's a paid thing.
But you can see, like, it puts it all in a line, so it puts a line of your globals, and then it also shows below, like, all of the buff uptimes and stuff. But that top row that you can see where it says Blade of Justice, and then you see that yellow bar in between, that's your global cooldown. So you see after his Blade of Justice, as soon as that global cooldown is up, he judgments, and then Crusader Strike, Templar's Verdict, Crusader Strike, Consecration, on and on. If he lets that global cooldown sit for a second, you would see a gap from the end of that yellow line to the next spell he uses. So here you can see he's using all of his abilities on global cooldown perfectly. Like, he's not leaving any downtime in between. So that's usually one of the first things I'll look at, especially as a spammy class.
The free one, I think, though, does give you the break, like the general idea breakdown.
Yeah.
Somewhere on there.
Yeah, so it's the overview page. If you keep scrolling down, so this breaks a couple things down, but if you scroll down to the suggestions, it gives you, like, major. Yeah, so this is Sledge Fist. So you would want to think for yourself on, okay, try to cast Wake of Ashes more often. He could have gotten 5 total casts, but he only used 3, which means he was probably saving it for pillars. But you could definitely get at least a 4th cast of Wake of Ashes in. But Wake of Ashes is big damage, so you might look at that and say, it's worth it to use it the 2 extra times I could have.
There are also certain fights that are good log fights and not good log fights. Yeah. Like Danny is a terrible fight to look at logs, because P1 and P2 damage literally doesn't matter. Like, it's pointless to look at it. Whereas, like, I think Hungering Destroyer is probably the best fight to look at in here.
Yeah.
Sludge is okay, but the damage amps throw everything off in terms of your timings. Yep. So I think Hungering is probably the best fight to use if you're trying to really break down logs as like a general review, trying to improve your overall rotation. You still want to look at each fight for like improvements you can make per fight, but Hungering is really the only good log fight.
I mean,
Shriek isn't bad either, but
Shriek is really bad, because there's a minute of downtime.
Oh, I guess I forgot about the intermission. Yeah, never mind. Scratch that.
Huntsman isn't terrible. It's a cleave fight, so I mean, there's certain things that you'll have to look at, knowing that it's a cleave fight, or Lady Darkvein isn't terrible. It's still like high uptime fights where you can actually look at what you're doing wrong. As far as uptime and usage. Like, you basically want to look for a fight where you can think there's nothing that's going to keep me from using all of my bread and butter spells as much as possible. Like, use all my shit on cooldown.
Yep. You have a dessert war breaking out in your chat right now.
Yeah.
Did we go over this topic a few months back about talking about pie and cheesecake and cake? Was that a thing?
Yeah, I think we agreed to disagree.
Okay. So we'll move on from the dessert topic. Well, so that was a pretty good deep dive into logs and help people get ready for 9.1. Yeah. So when it comes up, kind of knowing what I need to do to become better. If you guys are in the Mike community, you still got Hakkd to reach out to. You got Rain to reach out to if Hakkd's burning something down again. Is going to be on a hiatus in a little bit.
You can reach out to me and I'll tell you to go to Hakkd.
Also, guys, for anybody who does want to, check out WoW Analyzer, and you want to use the timeline feature, I do actually pay for WoW Analyzer Premium. So just let me know, and I can plug them in for you, and just like stream it, and we'll go through it together. So I do have that timeline feature.
All right, there we go. Anything else in the raid, like on retail raid side of things?
No,
right.
I'm ready for new content.
Have you guys got into any TBC raids yet?
I'm 61.
So on the grind hard there. Hakkd, where are you at in TBC right now?
I think I'm level 66, about halfway to 67.
All right.
I'm not playing.
Just started in the ground.
I'm level 0.
So, and I don't think I'm getting past 61. I'm doing something a little bit weird. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do Burning Crusade on my Demon Hunter. I'm just gonna go through and do all the quests, do all the by myself, and just do it that way because, dude, the game is so slow on BC.
I know, it's amazing. Like, so good.
What?
I guess.
I think after playing BC, where it is so slow, like every button press matters and feels way more impactful. Even the spammiest of specs are like slow as fuck, but I don't know, you get a piece of gear and you notice the improvement, and I don't know. I like the slow pace.
It's hard to go to that.
When I'm playing retail WoW, it's cool, but going from retail WoW to BC, I definitely prefer the slower version of the game. Like, I don't like how rushed retail is.
For like a DPS or even healer. As a tank,
yeah.
It's rough, man.
But also, I mean, retail tanking it's got its own cool things, but like the pinnacle of its gameplay is Mythic Plus and Mythic Plus only. Right?
For
like,
the Alliance!
Other than that, it's tanking is just whatever.
Yeah.
Press these buttons.
I mean, you still have to kind of have an idea of what to do in raids.
Yeah.
But yeah, most of the time, like, yeah.
I mean, we've had this discussion too. Like, raid tanks have their moments. Like, there's always those 1 or 2 fights within a raid.
Danny.
Oh, stop. Danny, yeah. Baby.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know, like BC, like I enjoy the tanking. It's just like it is really slow. And now I've gotten enough gear and everything, and I can kind of see how it was. And I'm kind of remembering how it was now too, because I tanked in BC as a paladin. But that was all you had at the time, right? So you kind of remember it as being like, yeah, it was awesome. I did all this stuff. And now I'm like, I don't have an interrupt. Like, at all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's rough.
So, Lynkz, what, you said you're starting to raid this week?
So, I'm at like 60, 68 should be 69 today, but they're doing a double care run tonight,
Nice.
and Tuesday they got rules lined up, so like we're starting to get into it. So
That's awesome. Enjoy.
Yeah, I might be interested in Kara because it's a 10-man, but that's probably about it.
see, I was telling Rain here before stream, like my TBC days were on a dead server, so we couldn't get 25 people together for anything. So we did Kara for 2 years or whatever it was that it was out. We'd go and like Sunwell and kill some trash up to the boss, but like we didn't have enough people to do actual bosses in the other ones.
I'm just impressed that somehow you got out of being WoW bankrupt and got through the portal.
Right? I'm rich now. Like, so, okay. Well, so I was trying to be like what I thought was smart, and I knew I needed flying at 70 because you got to get to like something for the Kara achievement, I believe. So I had 1,000 gold at like 63 or something from my boosty boy getting the 25 gold. I scraped together like 1,000 gold at 63, but I'm like, I'm gonna save it. Come to find out, like midway through 68, somebody's like, you gotta buy epic running before you can get flying, right? So I spent those 5 levels running at 60% speed when I could have bought the fucking faster speed.
Because you needed to anyway.
Yeah. Like, I thought I would just skip it and get flying. No. So I spent however many hours running at slow speeds because I was thinking I was being clever. So TBC.
I ran through the portal. I ran through the portal with, hey, get off my shoe, you bitch. Dogs. Sorry.
What a portal experience he had.
So I ran through the portal with 20 gold. I think at like level 64, I had gotten through just questing and through my auction house, like bank alt, had gotten my 600 gold to go buy the mount speed, and I'm back at 1,000 now.
Right.
But I have skinning, and I've been making a motherfuck ton of gold off the auction house.
So skinning's not selling as much in my server. Like, I feel like it's almost wasted time because I'm selling a stack for like around 1 gold is all I'm getting for a stack of 20.
Well, first, that's weird. Do you have like an add-on of any sort? Because
Yeah, I got
leather
PSM,
scraps, just the scraps, are selling for about 15 silver each, but you get like every skin you'll get like 3 scraps or whatever. And then an actual knot hide leather is selling for like a gold 50 per. And then some of the thick cleft hoof leather that you get in the ground was selling for like 3 gold per.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's selling good on our server.
Then. All right, good deal. So I guess I'll kind of wrap it up for the raid side of things. WoW events, we'll knock that out real quick. So we got time walking coming up here, so it's gonna be Mist of Pandaland. So a time walking.
Oh wait, what's the raid?
I don't think Pandaland has one. I don't think they've got the throwback raid.
Oh, that sucks. I
We
want to be
got-
Throne
They were
of
gonna
Thunder.
do
That
one. It
place
would be
was
Throne of Thunder.
freaking awesome.
Drone would be cool.
Throne of Thunder for sure.
Yeah, if it was Throne of Thunder, then we would do that this Friday.
Heart of Fear was pretty damn good too.
It was okay. but it was
It's no throne.
Yeah, but Heart of Fear was pretty good as far as like, cause Mogushan, garbage. Terrace of Endless Spring was it was alright, but Heart of Fear was good.
And they've only got 2 raids set up, right? They've got BC for when BC or BT for when BC comes out, and they've got Uldir for Wrath. Is that just the 2 they have?
Old War, not Old Deer. Old War.
Old War.
I think that's all they have.
Yeah.
No, they
I
have
think
they do the Molten Core thing every once in a while too. Well, or they've done it once, whatever.
Yeah, that was
Whatever
like
that was.
whatever year mini event that had that weird go back and do 3 bosses in different areas.
Moose, I do agree though. Siege was my jam. Siege was a really good one too, but I don't know if it was as good as Throne.
Yeah, Throne was great because
Throne was...
even now, when you go in, you get one shot by those snails.
Oh my god, the snails.
Yeah, right?
That's
Like,
your
that's what we should've done. We
qualifier
should've
for a
gathered
great
up,
raid.
like, 15 of those, brought them to Shadowlands, and just let them go crazy. It's done.
The jailer would be done instantly.
Right?
Those snails are the real end boss.
Snail versus jailer. No contest.
Would you rather have 1 jailer-sized snail or 15 snail-sized jailers?
You can't
Interesting.
Snail would just take everything, so it doesn't even matter.
These are the kind of thoughts that keep me up at night, dude.
All right, so little boring this week in WoW events. There's just the time walking pandas. You get what, a normal piece of gear for doing 5 of them? Is that normal raid tier gear?
I think it's 200.
So that's normal level, right? 213 is
Yeah.
heroic.
Yeah.
All right, you guys got anything on PvP side of things you want to talk about, or is that kind of just still in a lull right now?
I need to get my mount.
Everything's
It's super
kind of
easy now, so maybe I'll be able to get it.
Yeah, just DM me. I'll hop on.
All
Take
right.
fools.
All right, boys. We crossed off everything I had on the checklist for the week. Any other topics we want to touch on, or you want to roll into final thoughts?
I'm good, go.
All right. Well, Drew, we'll start with you then. What do you got for final thoughts?
Actually, I'm getting back into retail a lot more than I thought I would. Just helping out people, but also, like I said, just doing BC, but my way. So,
Doing TBC at a faster pace with a different class.
yes, I like to just throw that glaive out there and kill 3 things and have it done, you know?
All right, and then probably a lot less of the other faction dive bombing you and killing you because you can't fly.
Because no one's actually in the zone.
I really wish we were on a PvP server.
All right, good deal. And then Hakkd, what do you got?
I have not been getting back into retail, and I will continue playing my BC, having a good time.
All right, and then Mr. Rain.
Well, first, thanks for having me. This was a ton of fun. And yeah, I'm playing retail and working on my warlock so I can get out of melee. So our comp is better going into 9.1. It's more balanced.
All right, good deal. So we're gonna have a good warlock that's gonna consistently make us stones and make us portals. So
I didn't say that, Bay. Just want to put that out there if you watch this.
To be fair, Bay does those things all the time. Every time.
Begrudgingly, but yes.
Most of the time.
and
Some of the time.
in all reality, I doubt he was gonna make it 140 minutes into this episode. So that's why I didn't worry about putting it out there. So. All right. Well, shout out to Rain for being a special guest here this week and helping us deep dive into logs on that side of things. If you're watching this on YouTube, his information will be in the comments below. Go throw him a follow, sub, catch him when he's live. I guess, what's your schedule look like for streaming there, Rain?
It's mostly weeknights. I don't stream a ton on the weekend. That's usually my like chill time. I don't have a set schedule though. Weeknights starting at like 7:30 Central.
All right, there we go. And then Hakkd is slowly getting back into the streaming game, right?
Slowly, surely. Well, slowly, not so surely. We'll see.
All right, and then Drew, how are you coming on the co-stream thing? Is that in the works still, or
That will start up this next week. We've had a guest
special guest in the house? So
in the house, so that kind of takes priority over everything else. But yeah, starting pretty much next week, Kat will be back streaming. She didn't stream at all this week, and then she'll be streaming with me on the afternoons. I don't know if I'll be here for next time because I'm going actually in for some surgery on Friday. And if everything goes good, then yeah, you'll see me on Saturday. But if I'm not feeling up to it, I might have to let you know.
All right.
Hope all is good then.
Then hopefully he's feeling better by Sunday when we do this. So.
Well, yeah. I was just thinking you could pre-record me, you know.
Well, Hakkd does live from different locations. Like he was in the back of a van once. Like he's been in a hotel. Like Drew live from the hospital bed. Like is this a thing?
Yeah,
just to switch it up.
All you need is phone and headset. That's it.
All right, good deal. And then I'm gonna be switching that stream schedule coming up here sometime soon. The whole like married life with kids and sports and stuff in the summer's kind of throwing things off. So we'll switch it up. We still got Morning Wood every Sunday, 8 a.m. ish Central Time. So make sure you stop out. We'll catch us live. Video goes live on YouTube Monday morning ish, sometime around there. So if you're watching on YouTube, catch us every week there. Everybody's information is going to be in the comments below. Catch us live when we're out there. So appreciate everybody that stopped out today. We will see you guys again sometime next week.